Hey everybody, Matty Ice here, back with another build video. Before we get too far into it, I do just want to shout out that I am actually now streaming on Twitch. So if you could follow me on Twitch, I would greatly appreciate it. I will also be doing a bunch of grades, Grandmaster carries, build video testing, just generic gameplay with people in chat. So if you want to join up with me or anyone in the clan, that's the best place to connect with me. I would also greatly appreciate if you can like and subscribe to the video. I am trying to grow the channel, and that really helps out a lot. One other housekeeping item here is I'm actually only going to post one dim link. I'm going to be reviewing this build on all three subclasses, but I will only have one dim link in the video. That's because a lot of these are going to be similar across all three subclasses, and I'm trying to honestly just get the watch time up a little bit. A lot of these build videos, it seems like people just skip straight to the dim link, and that really kind of hurts the channel. So if you could just watch through, like, subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. So with Season 18, Season of the Plunder, Destiny actually has updated their Glaive interaction with a lot of exotic arms, one of which is the Karnstein Armlets, or Karnstein gloves. Gay vampire gloves, kind of whatever you want to call them. They now proc the health regen vampire caress on melee kills with the glaive, in addition to just regular melee kills. So this is actually a huge update, and it actually works with Nezrax as well for Warlock and a couple other exotics such as Feedback Fence on Titan. So this is a huge update that makes glaives much more viable than they used to be. This is going to allow you to get some survivability, especially now that Classy Restoration is gone and Arc 3.0 is out, and there's not really a whole lot of survivability on Arc. So this is going to help give you some of that potential survivability. So one thing you'll notice here in the background gameplay is that I actually am doing this just a regular Lost Sector, just running into it, not Legend, not Master, just generic Lost Sector on Arc and Solar. Things are working out just fine. This build does work across all three classes, although I will say that I do have a preference for either Solar or Void, just because of the other healing interactions that are available. But having this on Arc does give you a lot of survivability options. So coming up here, what you're going to see is me do this on Legend, which is going to be basically at level. So I was roughly 1570 when I went through this. I did switch over to Enigma because there's Void Shields and Thunderlord to handle the Overload champions. But you'll see that I'm just meleeing a lot of things with the Glaive. It takes a couple shots to kill it, and I just shoot every now and then to just help proc Devour or just get the Glaive kills, the energy kills themselves. So I'm doing this on Void, and as you'll notice throughout the Lost Sector here, Devour is actually very, very complementary to Vampire Caress. So Vampire's Caress, if you're not aware, gives you essentially a full heal when you get a melee kill or a glaive melee kill, and then provides about 10 seconds of just regular healing as if you're standing in a healing rift, or maybe like ×1 restoration. So that's why having Devour proc with this is actually very useful, because then you can kind of alternate between your healing methods of melee kills with the glaive, or shots with the glaive, or shots with other weapons, or even just ability kills. So that's why it is my #1 preference. And then Solar, you have the same thing where you could run a healing grenade to give yourself restoration, or to kind of help complement the Vampire's Caress healing. So if you'll notice through the background gameplay here, I was actually pretty weak at one point, and Devour fully healed me up, and then as I was getting shot again, I procced another full heal with Vampire's Caress and Devour active, so it kind of works in tandem as far as which one heals you all the way, but the Vampire's Caress is going to allow you to continue to heal after the fact. So that's why I prefer Void. Again, Solar's just as complementary, but this is going to be like your best way of healing on Arc 3.0 at the moment that I've found. So again, this works across all 3 subclasses, and it's just great. Now, full disclosure with this though, I did attempt it in the Master Loss sector, which I was exactly 25 under, so it'd be equivalent to a solo GM. It went fairly well. I made it to the boss room here, but I was overwhelmed by the just damage output of the Overload Minotaurs. So they were basically 2-shotting me, and without the ability to get heals on demand or just some other way of survivability, they were just able to kill me too quickly without any team assistance or just cover, really. So it's not exactly an in-game build for that reason. It's more of a mid to upper mid build. So Legend, you're going to be fine, and then Master content, you'll be okay as long as you are close to level. I'd say if you're 10 under, you're probably okay, but anything more than that, you might want to consider another option. But also when you get to that kind of in-game content, usually you're with a fire team, and if you are doing something solo, you have a very specific build in mind. This is more of just a run around, have fun build, and also just something to showcase the new changes that they've made. So as the Lost Sector in the background finishes up, I'm going to go into the actual loadouts for each of the 3 subclasses, going over aspects, fragments, mods, all that. Again, I will only be posting one of the dim links, and that's in an effort to try and get people to actually watch the video and to just make it easier on myself, because I'm only going to have one dim in my own personal files. Okay, so before we get into the loadout, I do just want to say that you want to use the elemental glaive that corresponds to your subclass. I don't exactly explicitly say that in the upcoming section. Okay, so for the arc side of this, you're going to want to equip Nezarec's Whisper, since that is going to correlate with the Arc 3.0 updates and give you the amplified and all those other synergies with Arc. Right, for the helmet, I recommend doing hands-on and elemental armaments and harmonic siphon. That's going to be across the board for all 3 subclasses. This is because you're going to want to be able to generate wells through elemental armaments and extra super energy through hands-on. Hands-on does not work with the glaive melee, but with Arc 3.0, it's pretty melee-centric. With Solar and Void, you've got melee options there as well. For Void, you could switch it to Solar, so you can get Ashes to Assets. That's a personal choice, but I like to just keep it on one, that we're not switching it back and forth all the time. Alright, for Karnsteins themselves, I like to keep it on Void. Most of these are going to be used up through some form of seasonal modifier, but otherwise I do 1 bolstering, 1 focusing, or 2 bolsterings. I also throw on a melee wellmaker to again get extra wells. For the chest, I keep it arc. This is probably going to rotate throughout the season though, since this season our thermoshock plating gives us both solar and arc resist. You might want to switch your chest to void, that we can have a void resist mod in here. But I also put in Font of Might. So this is going to help you do some extra damage with the glaive. It's also going to help you just do extra damage with your other weapons. So it's just extra damage all around. On the boots, I've got solar boots with bountiful wells. Again, you can make these kind of any boots, but you definitely want bountiful wells in your build somewhere. And I recommend putting it on the boots because for the bond, we're going to have double outreach and seeking wells. Now, again, you can switch this up to have double bombers. You can throw pretty much anything else in here if you wanted. But I prefer outreach just because it's going to reduce your melee cooldown when you use your class ability, and it synergizes with our helmet with hands-on. So it kind of depends on which you go with your hands-on or Ashes to Assets. Kind of dictates what you're doing down here with bomber or outreach. So that's where you can correspond your boots and your class item. If this is going to be solar, make the boots arc. If the boots are solar, you can make the bond arc. So that is the solar side. Alright, so switching over to the aspects and fragments, I prefer Storm Grenade and the Chain Lightning Melee. Chain Lightning Melee has a much shorter cooldown of 23 seconds on the base, so you get them back much faster, and the Chain Lightning and the Jolt and everything is actually really nice. Storm Grenade, it just has a pretty big area of effect. Another one I like is Arc Bolt. You could work on your Flashbang if you want to do a little bit more crowd control, but the build works pretty well without it, so I don't think it's all that necessary. Aspects, I like Arc Soul and Electrostatic Mind. I'm still looking into Lightning Surge. It seems to be more of a PvP aspect and ability there, but for the moment I don't really like it outside of PvP. Fragments, I'm going Shock for the extra jolt on targets with your grenade. It doesn't really work with the glaive itself, but if you do throw the occasional grenade, extra jolting doesn't hurt. Volts, finishers making you amplified. This is mostly just for the extra recovery. I'm probably going to swap this out with Ions once that becomes available, so I can get more Ionic Traces, which just kind of feeds into the ability spam. Magnitude, this is just kind of always going to be on for now until I see something better. It just makes your grenades better. Your lightning grenades, pulse, and storm grenades. And then I've got Discharge, where you get extra Ionic Traces. Again, this one might come out, but having those extra Ionic Traces is really nice to have. Even though we are guaranteed to get them from anything blinded and jolted, it's just nice to have that extra chance in there. Alright, moving on to Solar. Again, armor is pretty much always going to stay the same here. I kind of went over the mods for Bomber and Ash's assets. So going into your abilities, you're actually going to want to run Healing Grenade on this one. And again, I prefer Celestial Fire. Snap has a slightly shorter cooldown, but Celestial Fire has the range, and it's more single target damage, so that it'll proc all the melee armor mods that we have on there. Healing Grenade is to help give you restoration. This is going to kind of keep you alive between melee kills, because Karnstein's gives you that initial burst of healing when you get a melee kill, but then it gives you that slow building healing between kills, and if you all of a sudden need to get a quick burst, you can throw down a Healing Grenade. It also gives you your restoration, which is going to just really speed up that healing process and keep you alive. Touch of Flame is just going to make your Healing Grenade even better. So I go Heat Rises on the other one. This is mostly going to be because this is all going to feed into your melee spam, getting kills in the air, makes your melee come back faster, and that kind of feeds into all of your armor mods. You could also pair this with Icarus or with Phoenix Dive if you wanted, just to get even more restoration and provide some Scorch. That's kind of a personal choice on whether you go with Healing Rift or Phoenix Dive. Fragments are going to be Ember of Solace, Ashes, Char, and Searing. These are somewhat flexible. Solace, again, you're not really doing Radiant to yourself. You're only applying Restoration occasionally between your Glaive kills, so actually this one could come out if you wanted to. If you wanted to switch that for like Empyrean or something like that. These are kind of more personal preference, but that's the ones that I went with. Alright, finally moving on to Void. You can go Healing or Empowering Rift. This is kind of a personal choice. And then I go Vortex Grenade. You could go Suppressor Grenade, similar to Blinding on Arc. Again, Vortex I kind of like better, so that's just my personal choice there. I do Child and Feed the Void. Since Chaos Accelerant, you only get one fragment slot, and also we could charge our grenades, but this isn't a grenade focused build, so I'd rather get the extra fragment slot and have a free child that does weaken and can help proc devour. So it works pretty well with Void because the devour kind of replaces your restoration, where you get kills with other weapons to heal yourself between glaive kills. Echo of Domineering. Again, if you suppress a target, you can throw that in there. If you ran Suppressor Grenade, again, fragments are kind of up in the air on this one. Undermining, you're pretty much always going to want Undermining. Expulsion, it's always good to have because you're going to proc those explosions all the time. And then Persistence. This is just going to give you that increased Devour timer. Now, if you're not running Suppressor Grenade, I would recommend doing either Echo of Exchange, because we are kind of focused on that melee side, and that can kind of feed the melee and grenade build, or Remnants, if you're running a Vortex Grenade. But yeah, so that is the build for all three classes. Karnstein's and also Nezarec's is going to be very powerful now that Glaives work with this these armor exotics. So I would definitely give this a shot. As you saw from the gameplay, it works very well, and I am looking forward to using this just kind of as a fun thing to run across any of the classes, and not, you know, when I'm not tied down to any specific exotic for like a raid or a GM. But yeah, so that's gonna call it here. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, if you could like and subscribe, as I've mentioned before, I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you could follow me on Twitch, I would greatly appreciate that as well. I'm going to be doing a bunch of Grandmaster stuff once those drop, and it looks like it's going to be a bit rough this season. So if you want any help, just follow me there and look for the streams, and I'd be more than happy to help.